Hey friends, welcome to the Holistic Lifestyle Podcast, where I help busy moms that are stressed out over their to-do list reach their goals with ease and enjoyment, one step at a time, discover natural alternatives your body is craving, and achieve the God-given freedom of peace, confidence, and possibility. So I am super thankful to y'all that leave reviews of the podcast. It really helps the podcast grow and reach more moms and help me with the mission of just helping moms to live stress-free and pointing them to God. And I wanted to share a recent review, and it's by KY Mom of Girls. And it says, "A servant's heart. Desiree cares deeply about serving others and has a heart to help. She puts in the work to bring good quality information to her listeners." Thank you so much. By the way, I really appreciate your review and how it can help the podcast grow. Like I said, if you guys want to get featured on the podcast, tell me what y'all do for work. I would love to feature y'all and just how the podcast is benefiting you guys. I would love to share that on the podcast. Okay, friends, today we're going to talk about my second natural birth story, which happens to also be my first home birth story. So pretty much it was around midnight again, just like my first son, but this time we were much more stable. My husband and I were married to each other, and we were living in our first home that we had bought in an area we settled at in North Carolina. And there was some big changes during that pregnancy, moving from Houston, Texas to North Carolina, but it was totally worth it, and we got some land and were able to homestead and got a great interest rate, which was awesome. Anyways, besides the point, we pretty much, so we had went, okay, Dad will go and help him. So we had went into labor kind of suddenly this time around midnight, and it was pretty much, I was just laying in bed. I was like, okay, yeah, my water broke for sure. And it was like for sure this time, like there was a full-on gush. And so I texted my midwife and let her know, like, hey, my water broke. And at this point, I was actually at the end of 35 weeks pregnant, which was a week earlier than my last pregnancy. And so we're like, okay, I kind of had babies early. The last baby was fully developed, but since this was even earlier, by about a week, we wanted to take extra precaution. And my midwife was so loving. She was like, you could get, because in the town I live in, there's not a hospital with a NICU unit. There's a hospital, but not a NICU unit. So they'd have to transport baby to an hour away to if there were a need for that. And so we're like, okay, we'd rather be by the hospital with the NICU unit just in case, since our baby was coming a little bit earlier than beforehand. And so my midwife was like, you can either get a hotel in the area since, labor takes some time, or you could come and birth at my home. And so we went ahead and grabbed our first son's stuff and dropped him off at a family member's to stay and be cared for. And then we drove on over to the midwife's house. And probably my contractions, the pain started to come a little quicker this time. I remember I was trying to pack up a few stuff, help my husband get the stuff together to put into the vehicle, and about halfway through I was like, nope, I'm tapped out, can't walk anymore, too much pain. And he was just running around trying to get that vehicle filled with all the stuff, and it was a little earlier again, so we were a little behind on just like having everything together and orderly. And so he finished getting the stuff together. I was like, okay, come on, you gotta hurry up. We, like I said, dropped off my first son to our family member's home to care for him. And then we're driving on the way to the midwives, and the contractions, like when we dropped off my first son, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, they're getting intense. And on the drive to the midwives, I was just praying, like, we were keeping in touch to let her know we're on the way. I was just praying and breathing once again. Lord, please don't have me have this baby in this vehicle. It was also February, and it was like full on winter. It was like 28 degrees outside. And I was just praying and breathing and working on not pushing. And then we were low on gas, and my husband had to stop and get gas. Ever since then, we've gotten a lot better with keeping our vehicles filled. Like whenever it's halfway, we fill it up. That's an adjustment we've definitely had to make, especially living in the country and just responsibly having kids. And so we finally make it to the midwife's house, and, I'm walking in, and I immediately had the urge to once again take off all my clothes. Oh, I should mention, on the way there, I was like rolling down the window because once again, I got super hot and had to just have the cold air on me, and my husband kept trying to roll down the window, and I was like, no, that's not happening. Poor guy, he had to deal with like freezing temperatures, but I needed it. So, but we made it to the midwives, and once again, all the clothes had to go, and I got into like a kneeling position, leaned up against pillows, and that was really comfortable. And just automatically was like, okay, I need to push. And so started pushing. And I tried a few other positions like side laying, and I did not like that. And went back to the kneeling position up against like the base of the bed with pillows stacked up. And that was really well. And I like a very hands-off approach. And my midwives were so honoring of that. I'm so thankful for how God worked through them and just really knowing my needs, supporting my needs, being there for if there was anything that was needed emergency-wise, and being able to guide us in what to do. Thankfully, there was not, because once again, I'm reminded birth is such a natural experience that God created us women to create and birth babies. And so we ended up, I just ended up being in that kneeling position and breathing and praying again, and husband right there with me and the midwives, and baby came out within 45 minutes of pushing. So this was a total of only 5 hours for this birth. It was a lot shorter than the first one. And I think a lot of that was because my water broke quickly too, instead of like the trickle with my first son. And it was also my second baby. And so baby came out, and, they moved around a little. He didn't cry right away, but they moved around a couple times, and then he cried. And my husband did tell me later on that he was a little nervous about that because babies are pale at first. And so he was like, the baby looked lifeless. And thank God baby was not lifeless. If you do not know this, babies have more of a palish, kind of bluish kind of color at first, and then when they take that first gasp of air, it oxygenates their whole body and like the bloodstream, and then they have more of a pinkish tint. It is quite an amazing, quick experience, actually. And so automatically we did skin to skin, and they did a much longer delayed cord clamping, which was great. And the first time around, my dad cut my son's cord. The second time around, my husband cut our son's cord, like the umbilical cord. And we just got to lay there and have time with our baby. And I even had a quick glass of wine because it really does not affect the baby, because you're getting just like the colostrum. It's more of like a habit you're instilling in that first moments, and the bonding when you're breastfeeding, and like the teensiest bit of colostrum, and it doesn't go to your milk that quickly. And so I got to have a nice glass of red wine and relax and practice breastfeeding with baby and cuddle with baby and be in the comfort of a home. And although it was not our home, it was still a home, and that was precious, and just felt so much less stiff and less hurried. And our midwife knew all of where we stood. It did not feel pressured, or there was no anxious feelings. It was just such a great experience. My husband and I laid in bed. Our midwife had some soup in the fridge, heated it up. The other midwife went and got me like something from the store that I needed nearby. That was just something I was craving. And they're like, okay, y'all have a little nap before you head home. And so we had a little nap, and then we drove back home. There was no tearing. There was no midwife let baby come out with gravity on its own. It was such a better experience, you guys. And after that, if I was not already a home birth advocate, I definitely became one. We did have our drive home a few hours after that, and it was a little uncomfortable, taking an hour drive home. But it was not as bad as, sitting down when I tore with my first son. There was no tearing this time, which was great. It was just normal soreness. And we drove home and got settled in with baby. And then my family member had dropped off our first son back to us, and he got a bond with baby. And then my husband was home for a week. He's typically home for a week with each baby, so we have that bonding time and support and adjustment time, and it was so great. Midwife checked in with us 24 hours. She drove to the home. I love having home visits with a midwife and doing home birth. She came 24 hours, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, and 6 weeks, and checked on me and baby. And you guys, it was great. There was a little bit of a learning curve with having to go and register the birth certificate and social, but your midwife will guide you through that, and just calling and asking questions. And we got it done, and I was so thankful for that time. And I strongly advocate for home births because the healthcare system in general has been failing us, and they look at birth as a emergency versus a natural thing. And while it is, still hard on the bodies, it is a natural thing, and God made our bodies capable of it and capable of healing. And I hope that the story of my second birth, a home birth, can empower y'all that haven't had the confidence yet to have a home birth. Of course, look into it based on your needs and talk with your midwife, and they'll let you know, if you're a good fit for that. If you're having a high risk stuff, you might need the support of a hospital, and it's great when they are there for that. But if not, then home birth could be a great option. Did you know about the Holistic Life Academy? It's the ultimate life coaching program for busy Christian moms striving to be stress-free. It's where we get clarity on your goals and dreams and how to reach them. It's simplified for a realistic and easy approach so you can take action that you can actually maintain. It's holistic because not only do we focus on your to-do list, but we also dive deep into the natural alternatives tailored to your body's specific needs. In this program, you'll have access to weekly one-on-one live coaching with me, worksheets and bonuses, including breathwork exercises, but best of all, the blessing of freedom, of God-given peace, confidence, and possibility. Click the link in the description to get started today, and don't forget to check out my freebies. Head on over to Apple Podcast if you aren't there already and leave a rating and review on how you're liking the podcast to help me reach more moms so we can all live stress-free. P.S. If you're a working mama, share what you do for work to get featured on the Holistic Lifestyle podcast. Looking forward to chatting with you next Tuesday. Have a blessed week.